Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Patterson, and I did a webinar a while back for my Chaos to Confidence group, and we talked about naysayers and relatives that are crossing boundaries and giving us a hard time about some of our choices. And I want to share a condensed version of the webinar that I did for the group. I just think it might be really helpful to you. So let me see here what I can do, and we'll keep it up at YouTube, and that way you guys can access it whenever you want, because tomorrow's Thanksgiving, you know, and I think a lot of us, sorry about that, a lot of us have trouble with our family members and with people that don't cross our paths all the time. But then when we get thrown into these family situations where we have relatives that expect us to act like we did 10 years ago, or they know so much about us, they don't let us get outside of that box. And so many of us are really conditioned to be such people pleasers that we're having a hard time with stepping outside. In our daily life, we're fine with stepping outside of what is the socially acceptable thing to do. But then when we go back with our family members, we have a harder time. And they have a harder time too, because they are expecting us to follow our script. And we're not really following it very well. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. Let me see if I can make this bigger here. So lots of times it starts out with, have you thought about this? Or I know this one family and their kids are so messed up. Or school was good enough for you. I don't know why. You've got to go on this other way. And the list, it goes on and on. And the thing to remember about each one of these different points is it's more about them than about you. It's more about the stories that are in their heads than what's actually happening in front of them. So the naysayers, they want everybody to be on the same page. How dare you step off the path? So your job is to not take it personally and to realize this is their reality, not your reality. So that's a step. They can't, sometimes we get a little crazy and we start telling them way too much stuff because we're so excited about it, but they don't really want to hear it, because it's not about what you're really doing. It's about what's happening in their head. So it's not you, it's me. That's what you need to remember is happening here. The other thing is people who are too weak to follow their own dreams will usually try to discourage yours. So there's some truth, right? That you might say something, why do you dislike it? And it doesn't matter why I dislike it. It matters about what's going, they flip it. They got no solution. They just want to argue with you. They want you to agree with them. And so when you're not agreeing with them, when you're giving them facts that go in a different direction, all they want to do is bring those down. So knowing that about them will help you a little bit when you have to face them. Because remember, some people just play small, and they have always played small. And they've been conditioned to not go for risks, to not try the big picture, to not dream bigger. And so sometimes that helps us when we remember that. It helps us be a little bit more compassionate with them, because what you're doing is a fabulous adventure. And they're in this little tiny black and white thing, and that's sad. And it's unfortunate. And maybe you will become a role model to them. You will become this beacon of light that they don't have in their life, and they'll see. Because people learn about things at all different times of life. They don't always have to play small. And sometimes seeing you not playing small is the tipping point that gives them just a little bit of courage. So lots of times they don't want you to rock the boat. They don't want anybody to shake things up because things are going in a comfortable they're moving along, but they're stuck in a rut, but that's okay. They're comfortable there. So know that they just don't want you to rock the boat. So why, if you know all that, why does it still bother you? You know, why is it still getting under your skin? All those people yelling at you. Even if they're not yelling at you, it feels like they're yelling at you. And sometimes the yelling is happening in your own head. You know, sometimes you're causing a lot of problems for yourself too. So why does this happen? And we worry about failing. We have self-doubt. You know, we were not taught to be confident. And, you know, self-doubt comes from not enough knowledge, not enough undoing those tapes of school, and this is legitimate learning and this is fun, so it can't be good for you. It can't be learning. It can't be positive. Those are things that fuel that self-doubt. And we have this approval factor where we're always worried about whether somebody approves of us or not. Those are such big issues that are important in school. You know, that whole thing about getting your teacher's approval. If you considered yourself somebody that was really successful in school, it just means that you figured out how to get the teacher approval. And I don't know whether that serves you when you are an adult out here trying to go a different path with your kids. Worrying about somebody else's approval is a waste of time and energy. So these people-pleasing habits get really locked in early on. We're conditioned that way. You know, we're conditioned to try to get approval not just from our parents or from our teachers, but also from our coworkers and even the lady at the grocery store. We want them to like us. It's all kind of a popularity contest. And so when we've taken a different approach, we have to let that approval factor go. And then we also have this thing that works against us. It's this disaster mindset that we just think of all the things that could go wrong. And what if they can't get into college? Or what if they live in the basement? And so what? You know, what if all those things, which actually aren't valid, but what if those disasters happened? What would you do? So look at that. But also know that that's just fear running amok in your brain, giving you all those what ifs of disasters that could happen. And it is not helpful to you. And also it's a made up story in your head. So one of the things that we talked a lot about in that Chaos to Confidence course that we did was that if you're going to tell yourself bad stories, why don't you flip it and tell yourself good stories? Because if it's all make-believe in your head, do a what if that's good. What if they're wildly successful? What if all these things that I've been helping to fuel take off in some manner that I had no idea could happen? Tell yourself good what if stories, and because in fact your brain can really only think of one thing at a time. So don't let yourself go down the negative path. So how do we get to the I can do it part? How do we not let those fears grip us? Not let that people-pleasing skill that we've really honed, how do we not let that take control? First thing we need to do is get clear about why you're doing this. What are your reasons? Why do you want to unschool your kids? Why do you want your kids to take this non-traditional path? Different results, you have to think differently, right? So start with a list. List off, what is it that you want? Do you want closer relationships? Do you want them to be able to know who they are? Do you want them to be able to play more in their life? Them to be able to pursue their curiosities and see where that takes them? There are so many different reasons a person might choose to unschool their kids. Make a little list, even if you have to just sit down with a little napkin over on the side and list off 5 or 10 things of why this is an important thing for you. Pull them to the front of your mind. Because sometimes what's going to happen is then people are, they're going to have their questions for you. And you know what they are. You know what questions some of those people in your family or at the Thanksgiving dinner table, you know what they're going to ask you. So you're going to think about how do you want to respond to them. So you're preparing ahead of time in your mind. Some people are really open to more info. Some people are not. Some people are happy with just a little short explanation and then quickly turn it over to them. Let them talk about their kids because that's really what they want to do. And that, some people won't be happy no matter what. They've been waiting for this conversation. And so if that's the case, then realize that you could stop explaining yourself. They can only understand it to the level that they're of their own perception, like this quote says. So you can't expect them to understand and grasp what you have basically been studying for a while. You can't expect them to get it in one dinner conversation, okay? But preparing ahead of time and knowing that you might use different responses for different people might be the answer. So you want to find some common ground. What do you want to say? What are they interested in? And there's your common ground. So just a quote, to ignore the naysayers, really the only option is head down and focus on the job. That's a lot of people, just ignore them. It's certainly a possibility. Sitting at a table is a little harder to do, but it may be that you don't have to take the bait. You can simply make the choice that works for you. So sometimes we have to think about what would be responses to naysayers. And I sent a blog post out that I think had like tons of different responses. And truthfully, a lot of them are things that people may have wished they'd said. They weren't necessarily actually saying some of those things. Some of them are kind of aggressive. You might, it depends on your personality. And so this one quote of my mother told me a comment to use was, if you'll forgive me for not answering, I'll forgive you for asking. So there's a possibility for what I think of sounds like a lovely Southern response. But, there's another one that we've heard in our community. I think it's Diana's that said, your concern is appreciated, but your approval is unnecessary. Sometimes that works better in writing, but I guess it depends on the personality. What worked for me was to say, this is working for us now. Oh, I forgot the word us. This is working for us now. And if it stops working, we'll do something else. So that's good. They've been heard, because that's part of it too, is they just want to make sure you're listening. Are you open to the possibility that you could maybe fall back in line? Yeah, I'm open to that. It's a possibility, a tiny little percentage of a possibility. You don't have to tell them that part. You can say things like, thanks, I'll think about that, or we did think about that, or I think about that all the time. Those are perfectly legitimate responses. And it kind of deflates the anxiety about it all. When you don't have polar opposites, and instead you're like, I get it. I hear you. I know what you're saying. I am doing something else right now, but I am watching for that. And then, of course, that you would have people that I've read a lot about this. I have an article or two you could read if you're open to that. Those would be people that were truly inquiring as to why and wanted to understand. And they're rare. Most people only want to know stuff that pertains to them. So it might be some relative that is having a kid that's struggling. They might be open to it. And you might be kind of forging a way for them. People that ask, did you do school today? If you know ahead of time ways that you can respond to them. Well, we learned so much today. And then you talk about all the cool stuff that happened. And you help them see that there was learning happening. And then there was kind of a funny one that I ran across at some point in time where some guy was saying, oh, not to worry. Once a week, I take her into the bathroom and beat her up for her lunch money. Depending on your family, that might go over really well. You know, they might think that that was funny and you haven't lost your sense of humor about it all, and let's move on, you know. So that's something that you could use. You know, there's always the bean dip answer, which has been going on for, I don't know, I really think it sounds like something that probably came from church potlucks, you know, where somebody would change the subject by asking for a recipe or asking for somebody to pass something. In the 90s, there was conversation on the in the different forums, and somebody talked about this bean dip concept, and so that's been passed on, where you'll hear someone say bean dip anyone, and what that just means is it's getting you out of the hot seat. It's changing the subject, asking them to pass the salt, you know. That's just a way to turn the conversation a little bit. So the other thing to remember is that kids need support too, because they are going to be in situations that you've been telling them this is fine, and suddenly now these relatives say it's not fine. What? So, I mean, that would be the younger ones. The older ones might say, oh my God, yes, I know this is kind of different than what my friends are doing, and I've been uncomfortable about it, or I've been worried about it. So you being their support is really, really important. So you want to be their advocate. You know, why? This is why you have to address your own issues so that you can really help them. You want to run interference for them, and that can be directly or indirectly. Maybe it's as simple as, hey, switch seats with me at the table so he doesn't have to sit next to Aunt Polly, who's going to grill him. Or maybe it is, could you run out to the car and get something for me? Or we're in the kitchen, hey, could you go put this over on the table? Or could you go tell your dad I need to talk to him? Or something that just helps them get out of the hot seat. So that's one of your jobs, to help them. You may need to talk to the adults for them. You don't have to sit there quietly, you know, and it's your kid is not in some kind of a show where he has to put on his best response to somebody. It could just be, hey, can we talk about this after dinner? I would really like to talk to you more. And they're like, I was just asking him a question. I know, but let's not do that here. Just call it. Be in charge of it. And then you might give them some handy comebacks to use, because they're going to run into maybe cousins that have had parents saying stuff. There could be all kinds of things that they're going to have to face. And so having some quick little comebacks would be good. Like, do you know the capital of Angola? So when they say, oh, well, do you know 7 times 6? You can say, well, do you know the capital of San Salvador? Or some complicated math problem, you know, which you just use your Google or your square root calculator and figure it out. And then they have it memorized, and it's at the ready for their little show and tell example of prowess. Maybe look up what the spelling bee champion won, what word it was this year, and you could, which word the spelling bee champion won with, and they could just change the subject to that. One of them that really worked for my kids when adults start to quiz them was I told them to say, Mom said if the quizzing starts, you should probably take it up with her. Whoa, that it stops it right there. So that's exactly, just some ideas of things that you could do to help the kids through some of these situations. So, a lot of people just say ignore them, ignore the naysayers. And I think that it depends too on your foundation, how comfortable you are with it, who those naysayers are. That's going to make a difference on how you're able to combat it. I found some just other graphics that might be helpful, like courage in women is often mistaken for insanity. Just something to remind yourself that you're not alone, and life is too short to worry about what others say or think about you. And the older I get, the less I care about what people think of me. Therefore, the older I get, the more I enjoy life. So that's a couple of little quotes for you. So wrapping it up, how to have a good holiday get together, whether it's Thanksgiving tomorrow or the holidays in the future, or any kind of family get together. So you might make a list of unschooling benefits. So you're going to maybe list out what are your reasons and get really clear on it. Anticipate what their questions are going to be. Know what they are. Prepare some easy responses to them. And then be your child's advocate. 4 little tips on how to have this go better than some worst case scenario you've envisioned in your mind. Because a lot of times it doesn't even happen how you're afraid. You know, it just moves along, because sometimes these holiday get-togethers are really busy, lots of commotion, lots of coming and going. It's super easy to avoid a conversation. So that may be something that you're able to do too. So all of this, thanks for watching it. And all of this came from my Chaos to Confidence course that I did in August for a couple of months. But now we continued on with some private membership groups that are really inexpensive. One that's perfect for new homeschoolers or new unschoolers, and another one for parents of teenagers, where we have more webinars like this, but we talk more in depth about it. And there's a lot of coaching that goes with it. You get a group coaching call, things like that. So these are some things that are available to you, but I just wanted to share this video with you so that you had some really good ideas for how to cope with naysayers and rude relatives. So I hope you guys all have a great holiday, and I hope it helps you figure out how to cope with them. And I will see you guys online. Bye.